In our third and final episode of Basics in the Kitchen, we'll be rounding out the foundation of our equipment with the easy stuff, utensils, and not just forks, knives, and spoons. Measuring cups and spoons. You're going to need a set of these, at least one for measuring. They come in plastic, metal, bowls, all sorts of dangly little keychains worth of them. These are your workhorse, and every single meal, if you're following any sort of recipe, you're going to see tablespoon, teaspoon, cups. So I highly recommend getting a set of each. When it comes to cups, maybe go for a third, fourth of a cup, all the way up to a cup. And if you can invest in it, I would definitely get your glass measuring cups as well. This is great if you need to heat them up in the microwave, or if you need to measure larger things like stock or water for any of your dishes. It also makes it very easy to pour them out because of the nice little lip. When it comes to your spoons, don't go cheap. And what I mean by that is not necessarily plastic versus metal, that's personal preference, but I mean get a full set. The ones I have come all the way from 1/8 of a teaspoon all the way up to a tablespoon. So get the full set. You're gonna need it, especially if you start dabbling into baking. You're gonna find that there's those oddball ones in there, and you don't wanna guesstimate when it comes to your measurements at all. I personally have 2 to 3 sets of different measuring spoons. So these kind of guys like this, I have a metal set, I have a plastic set, I have a third plastic set. One, because it's very easy for them to break, but two, whenever I'm doing ingredients and I have something that's wet and dry, then I can separate the two, and then I don't have to rinse it out after every use or wipe it down or anything like that. Wooden spoons and spatulas. Why wooden spoons? Wooden spoons don't heat as quickly to scalding temperatures, which means they're not going to melt. They tend to be stronger, and they won't react chemically to acidic sorts of foods. They don't break down and leave harmful chemicals in your food, and they don't scratch your pots and bowls and pans like metal would, and even plastic can. If you go plastic, make sure it is high yielding to heat, and don't rest it on the pan, otherwise it will melt. And be careful when you put it in the dishwasher, because it can melt in there, especially if you do a heated dry cycle. Replace them more often than you think. For me, I stick to the wooden stuff for most things that I'm cooking, and then I have large plastic silicone style things when it comes to serving, and every once in a while I'm cooking. Buy a set. They're cheap, okay? My kitchen literally has like 8 of these spoons and spatulas and things like that. They're really easy to get. And if you plan on baking, really make sure that you have something that is maybe a couple different styles of flippers, maybe a larger one, a smaller one, maybe even one without holes. It makes it easier for things like eggs and all sorts of other dishes that you might find. And again, I can't stress enough, watch for wear and tear, watch for chips, watch for any sort of nicks or anything that are on these. And if it happens, just go ahead and replace them. They're cheap enough too. And your wood ones, you're gonna find that you're just gonna be able to keep them around for a really, really long time. Whisks and tongs. Probably optional for the most part. For me, I cook way too many items that need to be picked up with my tongs, like steaks. So that's why I have them. It makes it a lot easier to go ahead and flip things. Since I'm not scraping the pan, I do sometimes use my metal ones, but I also have the rubber tip ones in case I'm using any of my aluminum stuff. I don't want to scratch those pans. It's way too easy to just slip, and these things will just cut right into your pans, and then you're ruining it. So invest in 2 sets, or just simply get a rubber one if you have aluminum. With the whisk, it's great for aerating whatever you're whipping, especially when you get into baking. But you know, if you want to make your eggs fluffier or your pancakes versus doing a fork. But a fork works just as well. They're cheap, so it makes it easy to have a drawer full of these sorts of things for your go-to with cooking. As far as difference between plastic and metal, again, completely personal preference, although I would suggest go ahead and go for the rubber if you're doing something like ceramic, and also metal, then it won't make that scraping noise. But if you're doing something like glass, you can use the metal type just as easily. Can opener, peeler, zester, juicer, grater, garlic mincer, all of these are going to round out your kitchen in the miscellaneous department. They can be really useful, but you don't necessarily have to have them. There are ways around it. A can opener is a no-brainer. You just need it in your kitchen. Get a heavier, sturdier one that's a little more money. You'll thank me later. A lot of the plastic ones, especially the ones that have plastic grips, just fall apart. The downside is make sure that you're always rinsing and drying out this, because metal plus water equal rusting. So your peeler or zester and your grater, these are great. You don't need a zester. Technically, if you have a grater with the multiple sides and multiple planes, you can make do. But for me, I love the finishing touch of some freshly grated Parmesan or lime or lemon zest on dishes. So this, for me, is a really low-cost investment to just be able to handheld it over, a lot easier than a larger grater. And a peeler. You know, you may not use it all that often. In fact, you might not use it at all, but if your mom comes over or you're making certain dishes, it's another must-have, like your can opener. And, you know, if your mom and grandma do visit and they skin or peel everything from vegetables to fruit like my mom and grandma do, then they're going to ask, where's your peeler? A juicer. Just an easy way of not having to fish out the seeds and to really get every little last drop of juice out of orange, lemon, lime, whatever you're using it for. This guy has 2 different slots, so you can fit in your larger fruit or smaller. What I do is for large pieces like grapefruits, I'll just cut them into smaller wedges and then put them in there. But it's a great way of saving time and not having to do, you know, squeezing it through your hands or having to use one of your strainers to get dirty. And then finally, our last piece, which is just our garlic mincer. If you're like me, I like garlic in a lot of things. This is a lot more time efficient than simply cutting it. It also doesn't leave my hands smelling like garlic the whole rest of the day and night, which is awesome. And it's a nice little workout for your forearms. So there you go.